So I guess the first question is do you have any gigs to your recollection that like you're just never gonna forget? Like I feel like every comic has those one or two shows that are always behind them, looking at, they're just looking at their over their shoulder, like don't forget it could be just as bad as that night. Do you have any of those that stick with you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a challenge starting out. Like I cut my teeth pretty early because I was essentially a white comic in an all-black comedy club. So right off the bat, and not that those gigs were hellish, but right off the bat, I was very like, I grew up in a predominantly white suburb and stuff. So I was fish out of water, from day one. Um, and like the vibe of the club that I started in was, if you sucked, they let you know you sucked, the audience, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it had a little bit of the kind of like Apollo vibe to it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Not that harsh, but it definitely was a very real and honest audience. And if you were great, it was great. So I learned pretty early on, like, to be in the moment and, kind of not deny anything that was happening in the room.
Yeah.
Which is why I never understood these comics that kind of plaster a smile on and go on stage and just plow through material. And, it could be like pin drop silent and they're not talking about it. They're not referring to the energy of the situation. They're acting as if they're killing. And I never got that. It's so confusing to me to do that,
It's like a total lack of awareness.
Yeah. So
weird.
even in the, so what I'm getting at is when I had like some hell gigs later on, they were pretty combative. If the audience was being shitty, I was very much in the position of fighting them. So my worst gigs are that. My worst gigs are ones where I was really at odds with the audience. I did a thing in Alabama once. And I remember the room was completely divided. It was the most segregated room I've ever seen. It was half black and half white, literally down the middle. And nobody was paying attention and nobody was being cool. And everybody was shit-faced and rowdy and just being shitty. And I remember saying to the audience, this state is so racist, even the trash can't get together. Even the trash can't get along in here. I was like, look at this, just two kinds of trash evenly just parted like the Red Sea. That was a horrible fucking show. I remember there was a guy in the audience doing lines of ecstasy off the table. And he stood up at one point and did this, like did the Rocky at the top of the art museum steps thing. And I remember saying to him, how dare you make a pose that insinuates you've achieved anything in your life, you fucking loser. It's just mean. It's just mean. There was no getting booed, like just people booing, screaming. Those are the ones that stick out. But because, like I said, I'm sure all clubs are different, but like the club I started in, it was very much like that Def Jam vibe of like snaps.
Yeah.
And people yelling stuff out at you on stage and having to be on your feet. And like that, and then there was a whole other aspect of it to holding your ground. Right. And it wasn't just me as a white dude, it was everybody. But it was like, there was a respect you gained from the audience by shutting somebody down.
Yeah.
If somebody challenged you. But that's sort of a cultural thing. It doesn't apply everywhere. So you go to another club and somebody does something shitty to you, like snorting ecstasy off the table and then standing up and yelling at you, and you shut that person down. And it's not like a, oh shit moment, It's not like, oh, you got served. It's not, it's like, we don't give a shit what you're even saying. We're just going to keep yelling and booing. And what a fucking shit show, man. What an absolute shit show that was. I don't want to say the name of the club because they have new ownership now, and I think they've kind of gotten better. But at the time that I was there, it fucking sucked. That's a big one for me. That's a real big one for me.
And
That
then,
one.
you know, you have that show, and it's probably not just a one-off. You know, it's like a lot of times at these clubs, you have a bad show, and then it's like, well, in 45 minutes, we have to do this again. You know, and
Yeah. No, you're there for the week.
you
You're
know,
there for the week.
and so how do you handle that experience to shake it off to get yourself back ready for the next show? You know, what do you do to try to prepare yourself for the next one?
It's tough, man. I mean, there's a defeatist feeling you get, at least I get, in a situation like that. You know, as you get older in life and in the business, those gigs are few and farther between, because you get, you know, look, you just start to say, like, it's not worth my sanity.
Right.
Money isn't worth my sanity. I'm going to go into situations that are productive for me to go into. And hopefully, as you continue to work financially, you're able to be a little bit more choosy about what it is you're taking on. But even if you're not, I've been in positions in my life where I needed the money and I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. It's too much. I can't do it. I've been down that road too many times. I can't do that gig. But it's a terrible feeling. It's really like I remember the worst gigs I ever had in my life, because that gig I just described was one of the worst shows I've ever done. But the week had some bright spots. It wasn't just all gloom and doom.
Yeah.
The worst gig I ever had, because every show sucked and every show there was a problem and every show it was nightmarish, was a club called Off the Hook in Marco Island, Florida. Captain Brian's Off the Hook.
Every comic hates that club.
Yeah. It's run by a guy who calls himself Captain Brian. He is just a cunt of a human being. That club fucking sucks. That's the only club I ever played where I was like, I will never go back there.
Yeah.
I've had bad gigs at clubs, even the one I'm talking about, which is why I go, I don't want to say the name because it's like I think it was under bad management at the time. I'm always open-minded to like, well, what's going on and what changed? And, you know, and maybe it was me or maybe it was just a bad week or whatever. I do try to stay open-minded about that. Off the Hook is the only club I said, I will never, ever go back there, ever. Those shows were horrific, and there's so much that happened. That's the only weekend I was almost sent home from, ever.
Really?
I was almost sent home. I had such a bad show one night that was so confrontational with a guy in the audience. I mean, it was chaos, and they almost sent me home. And in hindsight, I wish I would have just went home, because at the end of the day, what would I have lost? $1,000. That's a lot of money. I'm not saying it's not, but very few people's lives are made or broken over $1,000. You know what I mean?
Right.
5 years later, you're not going, I wish I had that $1,000, you know, or like I put it to good use. You pay like 3 or 4 bills and it's gone. Like, so, you know, I wish that's one where I wish for integrity, I would have walked. But I wrote it out, and what a fucking awful place. Just an awful, awful, awful gig. And I remember sitting, just to answer your question about the feeling or what does it feel like, I remember sitting outside of that club every night before I went in, staring at the marquee in my rental car and just literally being like, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this right now. It's a feeling of you're at a loss.
Yeah.
I don't even know how else to explain it. Like, and I don't even know what I would compare it to other than being in a relationship you don't want to be in. That's the closest feeling I can think of. when you're in a bad relationship and you feel trapped and you go, I can't do this, but I don't know how to get out of it.
Right.
That it's a very similar feeling like that, the type of anxiety you feel,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's it. You're like, I have to walk through those doors and I have to get on a stage for roughly an hour in front of a group of people that are not going to like what I'm doing. And this is not going to go well. It's just not going to go well. I know it's not, you know, and that sucks, man. That sucks. That's a bad feeling.
And it's like a relationship. It's like you are stuck to it. You know, it's like it's like sitting outside of your apartment in a car being like, I don't want to go in those doors because that's where my partner is who I don't like.
Yeah.
But all of my stuff is in there. You know, like I have to go get my stuff. And
Yeah.
your stuff is on stage. It's like I have to go work. And
Yeah.
it's in that room.
Yeah. It sucks, man.
I've heard from the stories that I've heard about that place. I've never played it, but obviously, you know, Sam Morril has the joke about it now in his special, and like it's become quite a talked about place. The thing that I've heard is that they just don't police the room. You know, is
Not
that
at all.
the room becomes total like a riot. You know, and
Yeah. And here's the thing. It's not, this is why racism is so perplexing to me. I, people, people will make insinuations that, you know, inner city neighborhoods and, you know, inner city clientele, be it, be it, you know, black or Puerto Rican or whatever it is, that people from the suburbs ascribe the inner city race to be or whatever.
mm-hmm.
They would say, well, those rooms are that if you described the rowdiness of this room, that's where their head would go. Most of the time they go, well, no, it must be right. It was like a crazy, like hip hoppy rowdy. No, it was all wealthy white cunts in this
Yeah.
fucking room. Marco Island should sink into the fucking ocean. Just a bunch of rich, out of touch, privileged pieces of shit down there in that fucking town. And it goes so beyond that club. Everybody I met in that fucking place was just an aloof cocksucker. I mean, just rotten fucking people, soulless dead people that think a place like fucking Marco Island, Florida is a good vacation spot. I mean, how fucking dead in your soul are you that you want to go down to a place that's just a bunch of rich people spread out over an island with nothing to fucking do? It's just the worst place on earth. So the rowdiness is all drunk fucking nimrods and their fake titted wives that don't know how to act and can't handle their alcohol and are
Yeah.
only used to being around other rich people that'll cover their asses all the time. So they get shit faced and they don't know how to behave themselves. They don't have any fucking respect for anything because of where they come from and what life they've led and all that stuff. And then they're not policed in the room because rich people don't police one another. Rich people let rich people do shitty stuff until they're of no use to one another anymore.
Then they
You
have
know?
killed. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein was doing awful shit for a long time, and everybody fucking in Hollywood knew it, meaning the elite of Hollywood. I didn't know it. People in my position didn't know it, but people that had money and worked with him knew it. They waited until he was expendable. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then they got rid of him.
Yeah.
That's what rich people do. When you can't serve the purpose anymore, now you're expendable and we'll get rid of you. So, you know, nobody's got any real reason to check one another down there. And then if you do, you know, well, there might be awkwardness at the one bar we all go to later tonight because, you know, I told this guy he's an asshole and now I have to see him every day. And, you know, it's all that fucking Hampton shit, you know, this is just our quiet little community where, you know, we it's just us here. It's just us. It's just us. We come over here and it's just for us. And it's like, It's like, inbreeding's a bad idea for a reason, guys. The reason you let outsiders in.
It's it's
Um,
it's funny because you were talking about like two different shows with two rowdy crowds but different rowdy, and where you came up. Like I came up, in Pittsburgh at the Pittsburgh Improv before I moved to New York, and it was a very black club. And myself and like Ray Zawadney, who like we worked that club a lot because we learned how to work black rooms in there, by trial by fire. And it's so funny because it's like rowdy in a black audience could either mean like they're gonna boo you off stage, or they love you so much that they can't like control themselves. Like, because when you kill with a black audience, you feel like you're the funniest person in the world. You're like,
yeah, it's very high energy, and it's similar. That's also what you'll get sometimes from a Southern audience. Some
yeah,
Southern audiences are very like energetic. There's a difference between energetic and rowdy. You
yeah,
know,
right,
I
right,
did plenty of uh, energetic black and white shows in the beginning. I did plenty of rowdy black and white shows. Those are two different things. Rowdy is I would say is a bad word.
mm-hmm.
Rowdy, I never say it in a positive way,
Yeah,
ever. Energetic is great. Expressive is amazing. Sometimes expressive can be overwhelming because it's very loud. And it's it's like you said, it's like it's almost an uncontrollable energy. But it's coming from the right place, so it's a nice thing.
yeah,
Rowdy, I would never say ever in a positive light. I always use that word for like, I don't want to do this right now. This is a fucking mess. This is people being assholes because they're
right.
drunk.
Right. And that line I feel like is so fine. Where like you could have an energetic, very high energy crowd where they're with you, but it sounds chaotic. It isn't chaotic, but it sounds chaotic. And then the line between that and what happens at, off the hook, where the whole crowd is losing their mind, I feel like is so fine because at any point it could go into that energy, that negative energy of now we're against you. We were with you, we were all having fun together, and now we're against you, but
Yeah.
maybe that's part of the appeal, is like riding that wave a little bit.
I've only ever had that problems at gigs. There is a real stay off my lawn element to certain communities out there. Communities not meaning demographics of people, meaning like uh,
Area.
living
Yeah.
areas where people live. Um, there's a real stay off. It's like I remember the thing that lit the fuse in Marco Island was a guy in the audience going, "Watch it, buddy." That's when you're in trouble. When you get a group of people, like I said, like that kind of like Hampton's mentality of like, we have a lifestyle out here,
Right.
and you either understand it or you don't. You're either part of it or you're not. It's kind of like it's like Get Out or whatever. It feels like some weird, or Stepford Wives, or it feels like a weird like horror movie thing where it's like the suburban subordination, or and those are the types of places where I've always had a problem. Not always, but when I've had a problem, it's always been in a place like that.
Yeah.
That said, it's usually designated to specific venues. There's a certain type of person that hangs out in a certain type of venue, and that dictates the energy and mentality of the crowd in that venue a lot of the time. For instance, I've played Chattanooga a million times, and I have a great time because I would do a place called wait, is this Chattanooga? JJ's Bohemia? I think that's Chattanooga. Shit, I'm blanking right now. I want to make sure I don't mess this up. Let me look
No,
this
go
up.
ahead.
It's Chattanooga, right? Yeah, Chattanooga. Um, I've had a blast every time I've played that room. Uh, Despite the fact that Chattanooga is a notch in the Bible Belt, here's a place that is a haven for you know, sort of like the more punk rocky mentality people that live in that area. So you go there and it's a blast. I can almost promise you that had I ever played the club, the official comedy club there down the street, I would not have had good shows
Mm-hmm.
because that club is going to pull a certain type of person from that certain area. And it's going to get into that very, like, you don't understand what it is around here. You know, we have certain values around here and all that stupid shit. Um, but yeah, that group think is like when you really get in trouble with an audience because forget it. Whatever you say, it doesn't. It's like you said, you could get them to a point, but eventually you'll say something that would turn them on you.
Right.
All of them.
Yeah. Sometimes, gigs are bad for reasons. A lot of times, I feel like gigs can be bad for reasons out of our control, and you just have to do them. And I don't know if you remember this, but I wasn't working with you, but I was there at the Pittsburgh Improv probably 3 or 4 years ago when Tiffany Haddish was supposed to play the weekend.
Yeah.
And had to cancel. And then
Yeah.
you filled in.
Yeah.
And it was such a pleasure to watch how you handled it because the amount of people were coming to see Tiffany Haddish and then find out it's Joe DeRosa. It was like, it was insane. And I don't know if you remember that weekend, but the way you handled it was, I mean, it was so impressive because it's could not be two more opposites, right? Like there's
Right.
all these very nicely dressed, like older black women showing up, sitting in the front row, and then it's like, all right, keep it going for Joe DeRosa. And they're like, wait, what? You know, like they didn't
Yeah.
obviously get the memo. And
Yeah.
what do you even do in that situation? It's like, hey, I'm just gonna do my best, or do you try to address it? You know?
I mean, I'm always a fan of addressing what's going on, you know,
Yeah.
and I've had to do that a few times. It's always successful women that I'm for some reason filling in for at the last minute. I had to do that once because Natasha Leggero had to cancel something,
Oh my God.
and Natasha and I are friends, but you know, we have very different types of audiences, you know, so it's weird. It's like you have to be like, guys, I'm not. If you came here for that, I'm not. That's not what it's going to be tonight. So,
Right.
no disrespect. I hope you enjoy what I do, and then you hope for the best. But you know, and people are always very cool about it. You know, nobody's ever been like, "Well, fuck you, I hate you," and I'm mad that so and so's not here and I have to watch you. Everybody's always pretty polite about it. But I'm a big fan of always addressing, always, 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 always. And what cemented that into my uh, shows for me was I was already doing it, but then I talked to Brian Posehn. He said something to me that really cemented it. Because we did a really weird music festival in Jersey where we had to perform in this tent. It was weird. It was such a weird fucking music festival. And it kind of looked like it was going to be disastrous. And then it ended up being okay. But I remember when I went on stage, I made jokes about the festival. And then did my act. And when I got off stage, Brian Posehn said, "That's smart that you did that." He goes, always do that because it gives the idea that this is happening in the moment.
Yeah.
You right. And he said he does it too. He's like, you go up, you hit a couple quick, like local, what the fuck's up with this thing across the street or whatever it is, you know? And he's like, it gives the illusion that this is all happening right now. This is real. It's organic, all that shit, you know?
Yeah. And it almost, if anything, endears you to the audience too. That it's like, oh, they are kind of one of us, you know, like they took the time to find out the shitty fast food place or whatever. Because you
Right.
probably know this, where you go do a show in Middle America or something like that, and the part that kills the hardest is when you shit on the town that you're in, or you make fun of like
Yeah.
the one dumb billboard or the gas station, and they're like dying, because they
Yeah.
feel involved.
Yeah, you have to bring it in. I did a Zoom show last night. It was the first one I'd ever done. And that's where I started. I was like, I never do these fucking things. Isn't this awful? You know what I mean? Just making fun of the idea of Zoom shows.
Yeah.
She's just like, I'd rather stare at a wall in depression than do this right now. But this is the worst. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, I'm obviously I'm joking. I don't mean it. I mean, there's some truth to it, but you're not doing it to shit on the event you're a part of. You're doing it to be like, come on, like what, like let's all laugh about some stupid shit together. Just like when you go to like you said, you go to a town and you make fun of their local fast food thing.
Yeah, right.
You're not really hating on it. You're just
Yeah.
like, well, that's weird, huh? And they think it's funny, and that people, for some reason, people love getting roasted, man. If it's not too personal, some people even love it on a personal level. But if it's not too personal, people love it. Like when you make fun of their thing, like, oh, this, you 30 people all do this for a living. That sounds like it sucks. Ha ha ha. People love shit like that, man.
Yeah. They love to
I don't
be
know why, but they do.
Yeah. What I think for me, like kind of like you said, as you are in this business longer, hopefully those bad gigs, those hell gigs, are become more farther apart and fewer. So I'd say for myself, in my first few years, I was taking everything because I just wanted to take everything, and a lot of them were bad, and because you just have no idea, what's bad and what's good. And
Right.
do you have any gigs that stand out from your first few years of comedy where you look back now and you're like, what the hell was I thinking? Or who in their right mind would book a show there? Any from those early years, anything that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, the one I used to do I did it my first half hour on Comedy Central. I told a story about playing the Insane Clown Posse, Gathering of the Juggalos. And, I just told a story about how bad the gig went for me and like how I yelled at the audience and all this stuff. Looking back on that, I didn't know what it was until I got there. Had I been told what it was beforehand, I probably wouldn't have gone because I knew I would have known that's not going to work for me. I'm not going to do well.
Yeah.
But I went and I did it. And when it went bad, I really verbally attacked the audience at the comedy show. And looking back on something like that, I was like, man, that was really stupid. Because now, luckily, a nice percentage of the audience came up to me after the show and said, we actually really liked you and we'd like to see you again. This crowd just got a little rowdy tonight,
Mm-hmm.
So I guess enough people were on my side that it was fine. But you look back at something like that and you go, that was stupid. Like I'm a guest in their house, and even though I feel like I'm being mistreated, I'm attacking them now in a way that could be very unsafe for me. I'm in the fucking woods at a festival that's their festival. Like I'm
Right.
at their mercy right now. So maybe I shouldn't mouth off so much, but
Yeah.
you're young, you're angsty, you want to be Bill Hicks and have the famous meltdown on stage that other comics go, did you see that? That was crazy,
Yeah.
So looking back, yeah, there's stuff like that I would have done differently, but you learn. You just, as you go, you learn. You learn how to
Right.
get out of things and you learn how to maneuver. I don't flip out the way I am nowhere near as confrontational as I used to be. These days I really try to take the situation and diffuse it and keep it moving if I can.
Yeah.
If it gets out of, I say all the time when I do shows, the manager or whoever will say, what do you want us to do if somebody's a problem? And I say, you will know if you need to remove them. I will make it very clear.
Right.
If I don't say, get them the fuck out of here right now, leave them alone.
Yeah.
Because most of the time I am trying to be like, look, just, because you also learn too, oh, this person thinks they're being fun. They think they're being fun. They think like they're being part of this and they just don't understand. And, you know, man, I know there's a lot of people these days currently that say, well, I have no tolerance for stupidity or ignorance or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I always kind of feel bad for people that don't get it. You know, like
Yeah.
if you're being an asshole because your intention is to be an asshole, that's different. Fuck you.
Right.
But if you're being an asshole because you don't understand that you're being an asshole, I feel sorry for you, man. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's like a dumb person that's trying to act smart and they don't know that everybody's laughing at them or whatever. You know, it's like,
Yeah, right.
so I try not to make that person feel bad, even if they're annoying. I just like, all right, I've been down this road enough times. I don't have to make this person feel small. Um, so I just try to diffuse it, man. My best, you know. But I had a thing recently on the road before everything shut down this chick got out of hand. She fucking punched two bartenders in the face. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy because I did a joke about suicide. She started screaming at me. And she was, you know, it's always a problem. She was passed out the entire show. She wakes up, hears one joke, and then starts screaming at me because she's offended. And that's one where I was like, get the fuck out of here. At first I didn't. And then I realized she was going to be a problem. And I was like, you got to get the fuck out of here. Her boyfriend had to eventually restrain her from behind like this with his arms around her, pick her up and carry her out of the venue as she was kicking in the air because she punched a male and female bartender in the face that were like trying to get her out of the room. It was
Oh my
fucking nuts. It was
God.
nuts.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah.
insane. And then after that, you're just like, so Ubers are crazy, you know?
Yeah, it was. I mean, you know, it's funny. It was in the last 3 minutes of the show.
Yeah.
So I just had to do my closer and leave. But it actually tied weirdly into my closer. Like what was happening was I was able to work it into the concept of the closer. So it ended up being okay. And I bought everybody drinks after the show, and like I felt really bad, man. You know, like because you know I don't think it was my fault. I think that person was drunk and an asshole and out of control.
Yeah.
But you do feel a little, you know, you want to make sure if there was anything you didn't do right in handling the situation, which is very complicated because these are not situations you just encounter all the fucking time. You know, as a comic, you're one of the only people on earth that ever encounters them. And when they do happen to you, it's not like they happen every week.
Right.
And it's not like they're always the same. And it's not like you ever know what that person's going to do. I've had people walk on stage. I've had people threaten me. I've had people throw things at me. It's crazy. So I bought everybody drinks because that's my way of saying, like, guys, if I did anything that didn't help diffuse that, I'm sorry. Like, and this sucks that you're dealing with this. And everybody's super gracious and nice. And it was fine. But,
Yeah.
but that was a wild one. That one sucked.
That's insane. What
Yeah.
as we wrap up here, I don't want to keep you too long. I'll ask you this: what do you think your after bomb bad show coping thing is? Do you have like a vice or a food you like to eat or a person you like to call or something you do to help yourself cope with that?
I'll usually eat something shitty
Yeah.
because I'm depressed.
Yeah.
And I'll eat, like, the last time I didn't do well, I ate a cheesesteak and an Italian hoagie. So, you know, I'll get like McDonald's, like something like that. But drinking sometimes too. Like I'll just go out and if there's people that want to go out and get hammered that I can kind of share the pain of it with, you know, than that. But I'm pretty hard on myself. I'm my own worst critic. So I've really verbally beat myself up after bad shows. Less so when it's a confrontational rowdy situation,
Right.
because then I go, that's not my fault. But if I just bomb, like if I just have a bad set and I'm just like, ugh, I just didn't. Those are the ones when it's not even like so-and-so heckled or people were, it's nothing like that. It's just literally like, I just didn't connect.
Yeah.
Those are the ones where I'm really hard on myself because I'm like, that was my fault. I missed something. I didn't get it done. I didn't connect. I missed something,
Right.
and I turned that inward pretty hard. So I probably shouldn't as hard as I do, but I'll go pretty dark.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good though, because there are comics out there that are not their own worst critic, and you can tell.
Yeah, yes,
You can definitely tell.
yeah, by their material. That's
Yeah.
usually the first sign of.
It's always like, I like to say that like good comics never kill and bad comics always kill.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
like they're walking off stage and like, they seem hot. And I was like, do they seem hot? Like what?
No, that's a great way to put it. You should write that down because that really does sum it up. That really does sum it up. People, there are so many people in this business that clearly don't know what killing is.
Right. Right.
They don't know what it is. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's very obvious. It's like, you don't understand what that feels like, do you? Because you've never achieved it. You shouldn't be this comfortable after what you just did up there.
Completely comfortable, hanging out, shaking hands, high-fiving everybody. And you're like, what is wrong with you?
Right.
What is not connecting?
Yeah, exactly.
God. Joe, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Please tell people where to find you on social media and in your podcast.
Joe DeRosa Comedy on Instagram and Twitter. Joe DeRosa Comedian on TikTok and Facebook. Podcasts. We'll See You in Hell. Pat Walsh and myself review genre movies. Back catalog available wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes only on patreon.com/WYSIH pod. And then the new podcast, Corinne Fisher and myself, Without a Country, where we try to find some sanity and some gray area in the hard left and hard right news stories. That's at Gas Digital, live streaming new episodes every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then they drop everywhere else on Saturday. If you want to head over to Gas Digital, use the promo code WAC for a free 30 days.
Right on, man. And
Cool.
do you have any places people can see you anytime soon, or are we still waiting?
Nah, I'm still waiting. I got to see what's happening. I have some stuff coming up in September in Texas, but I don't know if it's going to happen with all the spiking happening there. So We'll see. I don't know. Waiting to see.
Right on. Well,
So,
thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, buddy.
Really appreciate it.